Hello again everyone, James here, and in today's Music Biz, we're going to talk about Morgan Wallen. He's a country musician whose career has taken off like a rocket ship over the last 18 months, and I want to take a look at everything he's done and see what other artists can learn about his success. Now, just to bring everyone up to speed, Morgan Wallen is a country musician who was born and raised in a small town outside Knoxville, Tennessee. That's on the eastern side of the state for those wondering if it's close to Nashville. It's not. Morgan always wanted to be a professional athlete. He actually got a scholarship to play baseball in college, but due to an injury, decided to pivot his focus to music. A few years after that, he ended up on The Voice, one of the biggest reality competition shows in America. And you may think that that's what made him a star, but that's not really the case. As with any artist's journey, Morgan had lots of epic highs and epic lows to reach where he is today, one of the biggest names in country music with a brand new double album that people everywhere are talking about. I want to talk about how despite the various advantages that he had in life, such as parents who made sure he learned an instrument from an early age and the opportunity to rub shoulders with celebrities as a result of his appearance on The Voice, Morgan did a lot of hard work and creative thinking to get where he is, and I think that there's something we can all learn from that. Now, I know this comes up in pretty much every video from this series, but authenticity is absolutely key to Morgan Wallen's success. Whether you're listening to his music, watching an interview, or looking at any way that he presents himself, he is undeniably authentic in everything that he does. And if you don't like something about his career, that's probably a personality trait of his that you just don't connect with. And that's perfectly fine. He's okay with it. He's willing to accept that not everyone will like him, but he keeps rolling with it. And I think that this is really important, especially in the world of country music, where there are a lot of songs that cover the same topics and the same ideas, and the only thing that really separates them is how you make them unique. Now, Morgan Wallen writes songs about pickup trucks and drinking too much and meeting a girl across the bar and running away with her and waking up with sand in your boots and all these topics that we've heard in a bunch of different songs before. But the way that he describes these moments, the way that he talks about his hometown in a way that you would only know if you had been there, or the way he talks about the night that he'll never forget in graphic detail, so much so that you feel like you were there yourself, that's what sets him apart. That's the authenticity, the accessibility, because it's not about writing about universal themes that everyone can recognize. It's about writing about these universal themes in a very personal way, so the people that hear them not only know what you're talking about, but feel like they were there as well. They feel like they're a part of your journey even before they heard your music. Like they've always known you because your story is so familiar to them. That's the key. And something that I think also goes along with this, at least in the case of Morgan, is that he has this every man's melancholy to his music. Whether you're listening to the happy party songs or the sad ballads, there's this nugget of just bitter sadness in the middle of every single one. And maybe that doesn't appeal to you the way I'm describing it right now, but if you listen to his music enough, you'll sense it. Whether he's talking about how now that he's a star and in the spotlight, there's prescription drugs and all these demands for his attention that he has a hard time ignoring, or if he's talking about the way that he wishes things could be simpler like they were back in the day. He's learned the lesson that all artists learn, which is that the more successful you get, the harder it is to find a true sense of happiness. And the way that he details that, the way that he's transparent about his struggles, makes him somebody that people want to keep listening to again and again. Something else I think we can all learn from Morgan's career is that it's always a good idea to take chances. Now, I know you may think that he's a lucky person because he was on The Voice, and that's undeniably true. It certainly gave him a leg up. But he only got there because he took a chance on auditioning. You know, there are lots of people in this country and around the world who think they're a great singer, who would never dare try to be on a show like American Idol or The Voice, maybe because they think it wouldn't be cool or wouldn't be hip, or maybe they're just afraid they won't get picked. But Morgan overcame whatever anxieties he had and he went for it. And this has happened again and again in his career. At one point, he was offered the opportunity to open for Florida Georgia Line, one of the biggest names in country music, long before he was a big enough star to really demand that kind of stage. But he went for it. He took that chance, he got himself out there, and while not all the gigs worked out, he was willing to keep going. He found a way to overcome his anxieties and take a chance on himself. He bet on Morgan Wallen, and it paid off in the long run. And I think that all too often we get in our own heads. We say we're not ready for this, we shouldn't do this because we might fail, we might look bad, we might be judged. Forget all that. Do what's right for you and what you need to do to get ahead. And if it doesn't work, it didn't work. But there's a chance it will. If you're anything like me, it's worth taking that risk. Next, there's something to be said for becoming a road warrior in the way that it teaches you about the business of music, understanding what fans want, how to perform for people, and how to engage an audience, especially people who aren't necessarily there to see you. After his time on The Voice, Morgan had a little bit of attention, but nobody really knew his name. I mean, if you had seen the show, maybe he would sound familiar to you, but he wasn't a star. So his manager suggested that he and his band hit the road to play cover shows. And by this, I mean they would play bars and clubs and anywhere that would host them and just play 2 or 3 hour long cover sets. And while some of these shows were absolute disasters with basically nobody there, he continued to do this for a couple of years because it helped him build up his chops as a performer. He learned how to win over a room that wasn't there to see him. He learned how to command a stage in a way that he might not have had the opportunity to do if he just sat around waiting for a big single or waiting for people to care about his solo music. He never stopped working on that, but he recognized that there was an opportunity to get out there and perform for people that didn't know who he was and win them over. And if he could do that, the next time he came to town, he could start playing his own music and people would still come out to see him. That's how you build momentum, which is really key in music today. You have to have forward momentum. So when nobody was caring about who Morgan Wallen is, he said, you know what? People love these songs. I'll go out there and play them for them. And guess what? They connected, and the rest is history. Speaking of covers, Morgan is proof of something that I've long believed, which is that there is always room for cover songs in an artist's repertoire. He started performing Jason Isbell's Cover Me Up in the middle of his sets. Now, he was already starting to establish himself as a solo artist, but this cover launched his career to another level of success. I don't know if it's because at this time Morgan was performing with bigger names, so he was playing bigger rooms with people who largely didn't know him and maybe didn't even know the Jason Isbell song, but something about the way Morgan performs this song captivates people. It's the track that they were sharing on social media. It's the song that critics were writing about in their live reviews. There was something about the way Morgan handled this song that just took the world by storm. And his studio smartly got him to record a cover of it, which has since become one of his biggest hits to date. It's actually been streamed twice as much as the original version by Jason Isbell, and Isbell himself says that he likes Wallen's take on it. And this all goes back to the idea of taking chances in a lot of ways, because there are a lot of artists out there, whether they're established already or they're just starting their career, who are afraid to do covers. They think that they'll be written off as a hack or uncreative, but that's not the case here. Wallen took an already established hit song, made it his own, and just performed the hell out of it. He gave it his all and his audience loved it. So if you're stuck right now, or if you're just feeling like experimenting in some exciting way, why not try a cover song? Why not take it to the live stage first? Don't necessarily go record a cover, but don't be afraid to play around with your set list. If you find a way to fit in a song by someone else that makes sense and you can make it your own and really just own that song, go for it. If your fans connect with it, you might find an avenue for added success in the future, a way to draw in unfamiliar listeners or listeners outside of your chosen genre just because they like the original song. There's a lot of opportunity in the world of covers, and you need to stop shying away from it. Now, 2 more things that I really want to touch on, and I think that they go together, are collaboration and experimentation. It's probably no surprise to you that not every country star writes every single song on their album. In fact, much like the world of pop, many songs have co-writers. Now, what happens with Morgan Wallen that I think is unique and something that other people need to do is that he's developed a community of like-minded artists who all help one another. He co-writes for his friends' albums, his friends co-write on his albums, and together they're building this niche in the world of country music where they all influence one another, they all bounce ideas off of one another, and it keeps the creativity flowing, it keeps the experimentation flowing, and it keeps building this repertoire of great music. Now, I think in worlds like rock and roll, for example, there's a hesitation to collaborate. I mean, you might get a guest feature here and there, but actually sitting down in a room and trying to produce new music for a single person's record, it just doesn't happen as often. I think as we move forward and as new generations try to build their own scenes and their own communities, you can't just think of a community as the people that listen to your music. Your community also includes the professionals that you surround yourself with. So put yourself out there, find like-minded artists who are trying to build a career, and try to work together. Not every session is going to create a hit, and not every person you try to collaborate with is going to gel well with what you're trying to do. But over time, you will find your community. You will find a circle of people that you can surround yourself with where everyone is helping one another, everyone is supporting one another, and everyone is pushing one another to do new things and keep making quality material. Going along with this is experimentation. Now, maybe it's because of what his co-writers are into, or maybe it's because of his own personal musical interests, but Morgan injects a lot of fresh ideas into his music. And I'm not going to say that they all work. Some of his more experimental songs don't really have the flow that you want his music to have, but he's not afraid to try. He puts hip-hop elements into his music. He puts pop elements into his music. He puts rock elements into his music. Whatever interests him, he tries to put into his songs, and that produces more interesting music. Even when it doesn't really work out, at least it's something different. In a world where there's so much competition in every genre and so many people writing songs about the same basic set of ideas, doing something original really counts, even when it doesn't work out. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there and try something new. Now, I could go on and on, because if it's not clear by now, I think Morgan Wallen is doing something very cool. He exists in a very saturated marketplace, and he writes about the same things that we've heard in country music for decades. But he's found a way to make it his own, and every song he writes feels personal to him, even if it feels familiar at the same time. And that balance of familiarity and originality is something that I think we could all strive for in our musical careers. And if you want more information on Morgan and other artists and what's happening in the music industry as a whole, well, guess what? That's why this channel exists. So if you haven't done so already, please click the subscribe button down below. I know everyone tells you to do this, but it would mean the world to me. It helps me keep my job. It helps me keep this channel going. So please click that button. And if you've already done so, thank you for sticking around. I'll be back soon. And in the meantime, take care of yourself, because you deserve it.